thanks for inviting me. It was I think it's nice to sort of talk to people about various things. And actually, this is the first time that I'm giving a full talk about rCharts. Usually, it's a talk that I do a talk combining a couple of the other tools that I've built. So this is probably going to be, and this is going to be the first one where I'm trying to do a lot of hands-on stuff. So again, I would really appreciate any feedback, comments that you have. rCharts is a fairly recent package, and so I'm always looking to your use cases and any other comments you have. Okay. So let me quickly go over how I try to organize the talk for today, because so one thing John mentioned is that the people attending, there's a variation in where you stand in terms of art, in terms of programming and other things. So I try to kind of see that everyone leaves this room with something useful. Okay. I may or may not succeed in that, but I try to honestly do that. So I've divided the talk into 5 parts, and the first part is just an introduction to rCharts. The idea is to figure out how you can create simple, interactive visualizations directly from R. So this part is going to be fairly, I would say, simple. So the next module is going to be on sharing visualizations, where I'm going to take you to once you create a visualization, what are the various ways you can share it, because if you can't share it, then there's no reason to create it. Right? So this part is also going to be fairly simple, 1-line, 2-line piece of code. The third part becomes more interesting, where I will take you to adding interactivity to the charts we create using rCharts. I will discuss a couple of approaches that one can take. So this is going to be a little more advanced than the first 2 parts. And finally, for a lot of people who are already very used to doing interactive visualizations, the first 3 parts are going to be pretty simple. So bear with me till I finish that. The last 2 modules focus on one module is how it works. I wanted to go through a little bit about the design of rCharts, and essentially this is useful for people who want to extend and add more modules to rCharts. So there's a selfish reason for me to do this, because more people who understand how things work, I'm hoping to contribute back to rCharts. So that's one of the reasons I'm here. And finally, I will take you through a couple of end-to-end cases where you start with data and you end up with a nice interactive visualization. So there's a lot of code here which I'm not going to discuss, but at least I hope this will give you a flavor of like the full capabilities. So I have 3 cases. I'm going to do 2. I'm going to do the third one. So one is visualizing by sharing networks. The other is on bump charts, which are a nice way to visualize the ranking of teams to an entire season. So I'll discuss how you can kind of do this straight from R using some of the rCharts. Okay, so basically going from simple to kind of complicated stuff. And I would like to try to keep it to 2 hours so that there is enough time for people to ask questions, and I'll also try to see if we can have a dedicate some time in between to kind of where people can try certain more pieces of code, and go along and sort of do a hands-on kind of thing. And feel free to chip in the questions at any point. As I said, I don't need to get through all my slides. I just made sure that I have enough to keep you busy for 3 hours if you want. So let's start with what rCharts is all about. So how many of you have already played with rCharts? So there's quite a few people who play with rCharts, but for those of you who haven't played with it, rCharts is an R package. It helps create, customize, and share dynamic interactive visualizations from R using a consistent lattice-like format. So, I mean, you always, in business schools, always try to come up with this 30-second elevator pitch, right? So I force myself to say, somebody asked me what rCharts is. This is, and I'm going to expand on each of these points. So creation, we're going to go to creation, customization, sharing. I'll talk about what I mean by dynamic, interactive, and finally. Okay. So let's start with a very simple. So this is just a quick start that I put it up initially. So if you want to play around with the code that I'm be showing you. If you run this and you're on a Mac, you're good. You want to be installing the packages. If not, I will point you to another link here. rCharts.io/playground. It's an online playground for rCharts where you can still use that without any installation. You will be able to recreate some of the charts that I discussed. Okay. So either by having a laptop, you can install it, or use it. So let me start with the creation part. Okay. So the whole idea behind our charts is that people want interactive plots, right? But to create interactive plots, you need to know JavaScript, you need to know HTML, you need to know CSS, and so traditionally these plots have been created by people who are adept at web development. Whereas those of us who come from a more statistical background, we're very used to creating charts, especially in R, where you just tell me, okay, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, this is the data set, and I want a particular type of plot. Okay. So my overarching design principle here on our chart is like, is it possible to create a system where it's flexible enough, but one can create with just 1 or 2 lines of R code, one can create an interactive plot. Okay? And I talk about different levels of interactivity, so I'm not saying this is kind of covers all levels of interactivity, it covers some levels. Okay? So let's take a look at this piece of code up here. Right? So what it's saying is, so the function is rplot. So rplot essentially plugs into a JavaScript library called polycharts, which actually is based on the grammar of graphics, inspired by Hadley Wicken's ggplot tool. So basically, I'm telling R, okay, I need a scatter plot, okay, point type, of miles per gallon versus weight, faceted by the number of gears in the data set. So this is for those of you who have played with R, MP cars is a very famous data set. It's basically 32 automobiles giving various features, right? So, and why is this plot interactive? Well, the only interactivity in this plot currently is hover. Basically, you can hover around it on each point and you can see what the point is of. You can add more interactivity, but obviously that will take more effort in terms of I'll try to see how far we can get it. Okay. So the idea is to be able to create such plots with simple, consistent interface. Okay. Now, I'll talk more about it in terms of how it works when it comes to how it works, but what exactly is happening here? So essentially, when you run this piece of code, what R is doing in the background is it is based on all the parameters you provided, it is actually creating the HTML and JavaScript using a template, and it's creating the entire HTML file which you can then get. Okay. So just to kind of show you this in effect, let me just I'm going to use the playground just to sort of. Okay, so this is an rCharts playground, which is so let me do the same example. Submit. You will see charts. I have added passive here. So what you see here is actually a static piece of HTML which you can download, you can share with somebody, and it will go. Okay. So now there are 2 ways to kind of create interactive visualizations from non-browser-based languages, right? So one is taking a very fundamental approach, like for example, Hadley Wicken's ggvis package, which is essentially a ggplot2 extension using Vega. It takes a very fundamental approach where it uses the grammar of graphics and it plugs into D3 using Vega, and it tries to create interactive visualizations, right? Now, the approach in rCharts is very different. The approach in rCharts is basically, my philosophy was, JavaScript developers are far more in number than R developers. And JavaScript developers are far more adept at creating interactive solutions, especially given the growth of D3 and all that stuff, right? So, my philosophy was, if I can create a conduit by which I can tap all these different libraries that people have been building, then I really don't need to do very fundamental stuff. I can kind of be able to generate a lot of interactive visualizations with how our functions. Okay, and that's exactly what I will. I'll show you a couple of the libraries that rCharts supports, and I'm constantly trying to add newer libraries, mainly to kind of stress test the design. So anytime I find a library that I can't integrate, obviously lead to a feature set which I can. Okay, so another example, another very popular D3 based library. Actually, rCharts is not D3 based. Based on the fact. This is basically now it's the same chart we saw before, but this time it uses a library called MBD3. It is one of the really one of the very nice D3 wrappers, right? So D3 is kind of a lower level library where you do all kinds of stuff, but it's very verbose because you need to pretty much construct the entire plot, every aspect of it, right? So it gives you amazing customization. So any plots you've seen on New York Times, this is basically, most of them are, pretty much everything is D3. Right? Like bus stop there. So D3 is kind of the, I would say, the main package that kind of does. Now, MBD3 is something that was built on top of D3, basically trying to provide reusable charts. And what I've done here is, this is how MBD3 is kind of integrated into our chart. So you can see the syntax is very similar, right? Instead of R plot, it's N plot, MPG versus weight is the same thing. And I'm grouping the data by year. Now you might ask me why I did not use faceting here. Well, MBD3 does not have faceting built into it, which brings me to the limitation of our charts. I can only provide features that the underlying JavaScript library provides, right? So flexibility is kind of limited to that, which is why I'm trying to provide as many libraries as possible so that you find the chart you're looking for in one of the libraries, right? And of course, the type of the chart is scatter chart. So this is something I found pretty strange, not strange, but every JavaScript library developer tries to use a different name for the same chart, right? So there's something called point. The MBD3 guys call it scatter chart. So I mean, it creates a lot of inconsistency in terms of like what you would call it. I removed some of them, but not all. So here I still have to call it a scatter chart because that's what MBD3 calls it, and I try to keep things right. So here the interactivity that I talked about is one is over, and there are different kind of unselect points. You can select groups. You can do fisheye magnification. So, and these are all features that are already available in anything. Okay. So rCharts merely provides a conduit to getting to that, right? So any feature that's supported by the library, usually I can support from rCharts, but the limitation is that I only do what the library does. Unless, of course, you can hack in the underlying. So sometimes if you're also a reasonably good D3 developer, you can take this chart as your starting point, so that all your boilerplate is done, and you can work with that and add more features. Similarly, another library which I really like, I'll talk about it more, is Leaflet. So Leaflet is an amazing mapping library. So bike sharing application I talked about uses Leaflet. So the same thing I've done here, where it's so this is basic code that shows output. So basically I'm saying, look, I need a leaflet map centered at latitude 51.5, longitude minus 4.9, 13 level zoom. I want to use salmon watercolor maps, and I wanted to add a marker at this position with a pop-up that says hi. So that's what I do here, and once you do this, you will see that this is the map that got created. Right? And if you click on this pop-up, then you can kind of see that. Right? And you can do some neat things. So let me just copy this whole piece of code. Let me put it in the playground. Now all the font size in the playground. It's kind of for some reason doing two columns. So you can do some pretty cool things which are supported by the underlying library. So for example, if I want the pop-up to be open, I can just say open pop-up equals true, and basically now you will see that now you see that by default the pop-up is open. Right. So all that rCharts does is basically provides this content. right? Where you can stay completely in R and be able to generate these JavaScript visualizations. And the advantage of doing it in a single language, at least what I see, is that like you need to create this HTML, you need to add the underlying JS libraries, CSS libraries, you need to create the boilerplate. So rCharts takes the boilerplate out for you and says, okay, just provide the data-oriented details of the chart, and everything else will be taken care of by the template. Okay. So this is leaflet, and rCharts also supports rCharts, which is a pretty nice library. Unfortunately, it's for commercial purposes, it's actually a pretty expensive library. This was actually developed by one of the people who I'm collaborating with on rCharts. He was the one actually who started off with a lot of the design, and I was actually inspired by him, and he did rCharts, and I just took some of the ideas from that, and then I was able to do a lot more with that. Okay? So this is again rCharts, and this is S-plot. You can see x-axis, y-axis, and rCharts allows multiple layers. So you can see I have 3 layers, line, dot, and scatter, grouped by flat with age and size. And if you run this piece of code, you're going to get a plot like this. And rCharts has a lot of interactive features already built in. I think of all the libraries, I think rCharts has a lot of features, but again, it's a commercial library, so which is why probably has all these features. So this essentially is what we start out with. And on the playground, I mean, when you want to play around the code, so there is like examples of like 6 or 7 libraries. I think from last count I remember, I think rCharts supports pretty close to 11 or 12 different libraries. A lot of libraries that I've put on GitHub. So I'm working on DCJS and trying to basically write bindings to a whole bunch of specialized libraries, parallel charts. But I'm not going to talk about them. But if you want, the biggest way to get handle on things, you can basically look at the examples here, and the model is another library. And something. I'll debug this later. Okay, so that's basically the whole creation part, right? Now, I heard the customization part a little later. I want to talk about the sharing part. So what happens once you create a plot? I mean, the next question comes like, well, I want to share it. What options do I have to share? Right? So here's a simple example here, where I'm creating a simple bar chart. Okay, and using a data set called iColor, which is a operated set in R. And so let's start with the simplest option. Okay, so let me go back to code and I'll tell you what's happening here. So rCharts uses what's called reference classes. Okay, for those of you who come from other languages, so it's basically the preferred object-oriented approach. For a lot of people in R who are more used to functional programming, this might sound a little different. But the idea is that reference classes provides a beautiful way to sort of make object-oriented things, right? So in other words, the first line, if you look at the first line, N1 is nplot. That line essentially creates the chart, okay? And then every line after that is manipulating the chart. Okay? You will see that there are no assignments here. So I'm not saying that N1 equals N1 set width equals 1000. Okay? And the reason is that reference classes are mutable. So basically this object is kind of changing things as we. So when I say set width equals 1000, it's basically just adding this information, retaining everything else that it is. Okay? So the nice thing about that is because all the information is retained, you can do like nice stuff with it, which I will show you. So the first thing is saving charts, right? So how do I go about saving a chart? So in this case, what I've done is that I use the save method. So these are all methods belong to the reference class. So the first line says n1.save. So it's saying save this chart. Where do I want to save it? Save it in location, right? So in my case, I have a nested folder, save chart.html. And the last line that you see here, it says CDN equals true, right? What that does, it says, look, when you create this chart, by default, it will link to the local libraries on your laptop, on your computer. So the JavaScript libraries required, the CSS files required, they're all going to be linked to from your desktop or laptop, right? So the minute you want to share it with somebody, if you send it to somebody, it's not going to work if they don't have options, right? So CDN equals true is basically saying, I want you to deliver all the JavaScript CSS assets from an online repository. So basically, which means that once you share it with somebody, they're going to. So this is the simplest way of saving the file and sharing it with somebody. Okay. So you can just email this chart, and they will be able to open it without any differences. Now, a lot of times charts are not standalone, right? Charts are part of documents that we are writing. Right? And this whole reproducible research, dynamic documents that's becoming popular, it's important to be able to embed these charts in your presentation or any document. Right? So if you talk about embed, rCharts provides 3 options currently. Okay. So the first option, so let me read the code and explain that. So here I'm saying, okay, I have N1, I want you to show it as an iframe. Okay. So iframe, for those of you not familiar with HTML, iframe essentially is like a sandbox environment. Right? It's basically a separate file. Right? So this chart that you're seeing is a separate HTML file that I've just embedded in my presentation. Okay. And by the way, all the slides are being generated by the code that, so this is kind of a reproducible slide deck. So the code that is there on top is exactly what generated the output here. Okay. So this is going to be an iframe. And now the nice thing with an iframe is that the environment is sandbox, so it won't interfere with the CSS and other aspects of your presentation. So it will show up exactly as it's intended to show. Okay. On the negative side, it's a separate file. So if you're sharing this presentation with someone, you need to share the entire folder, because otherwise this is going to show up as blank. Okay. So those are the pros and cons of this approach, but it's a clean approach in that sense. Now the other option you have that is basically inline iframe, and this is something that I got to know recently. So inline iframe is where the entire HTML of the iframe is there in the same file. Okay? So it's an iframe, but it's not linking to from the external file. It's just sandboxing the HTML, and it's a nice way to kind of do this because it gives you the protection of sandboxing, but also gives you like a single file. So let's say you're trying to publish using our presentation and RCharts file of RStudio. This is the approach that you should take because RPubs only allows you to publish a single file, right? It doesn't allow you to upload multiple files. So you need everything to be in sequence. Okay. What's the flip side of this approach? Flip side of this approach is that the iframe source, the way this iframe is defined, it is not supported by all browsers. So I think Opera and the older versions of IE don't support it. So if you're using one of those browsers, this slide will not show up for you. Okay. Now, a third option, which a lot of people like to do, and this is the approach that, for example, IPython notebooks and others take, which is kind of inlining the entire chart. Okay. So inlining the entire chart means that this HTML is a part of this file. Okay. The entire JavaScript, everything is a part of this file. This is neat in the sense that everything is there, but the main problem is that there could be interference with other JavaScript files you're using in presentation. So there could be a lot of conflicts. So this is, I started this as my most preferred way of doing it, but now these days it's my least preferred way because we never know what will conflict involve. Right? The sandboxing kind of is the key. Right? So these are 3 approaches that you could take. Now, a lot of times you don't want to really do this, right? You don't want to say something, send it to somebody. You want to be able to quickly publish something that you create, right? And a lot of this I did because I was kind of lazy. That whenever the written process was there, I said, I don't want to keep doing this again. So they're really automating the entire procedure. Okay. So that was the genesis for the publish functions in rCharts. I'll show you a demo. But, so once you create a chart, right, you can publish it by just using the publish function. Okay. Now this looks easier than it is. And so what's the caveat? Well, the caveat is that this is going to publish by pushing your code to GitHub gist. Okay. So if you have everything set up in your computer to work with gist, then you're good. Otherwise, so this will work for most of you who already kind of use GitHub a lot. But for others, you might need to do a little bit of setup in terms of SSH access and all that. So that's the only problem with this. But I mean, once you set it up, it's kind of easy. I'll show you. Let me take the same example. And so here it is. So I have my now. So I'm creating my chart here, and then I'm using N1, publish, and so I'm saying testing first. So what this is going to do once I issue this, it's going to create the HTML file. It's going to package it for the gist. It's going to use the HTTP package by Handle to push it to the gist, and give you a link where you can view your chart. Okay. So it tells you it's where your chart is being published. So let's go there. Let's see if I can find a chart there. Chart is there. So why it's not showing up?
Can anyone in the audience see it? Can type in the URL?
Yeah. Where do you see John?
No, if someone types in the URL, they should be able to see it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, it's there in the gist. I can see that it's being published, right? So the gist is published here. So this is the chart that I created. It's there here. I'm just trying to see why it's staying undefined. It might have, maybe I should use HTTPS, could be a protocol. Try once more, and if it doesn't work, then I'll just sit back. I'm going to use a different viewer, blocks.org, and so the chart is being published. You can use different viewers. So blocks is the viewer that you might built for D3, so I'm just going back in on that. rCharts here is something I don't know what's the problem with the site, but we use blocks and we use rCharts.
Yeah. Following along, I tried it and it asked me for GitHub.
Yeah, I use the username and password. I already put my username and password before I started the session, so that I'm not putting it in front of you, right? But there is a problem with the site itself. When I say rCharts or io/viewer, it's showing undefined. It should. So I believe there's a problem with. Yeah.
Does one of the options that you showed allow you to view it locally on using a laptop to run rCharts and then have it go to the local port?
Yeah, you can do that as well. So, for example, so if I do N1 here, if I just type N1 here, actually, because I'm running within RStudio, this will actually show up in RStudio itself. Or it should, yeah. So it shows up in the viewer. Basically, it detects the fact that you're running it within RStudio, it will show it up here. If you're using regular R console, then it's going to open the browser and show it. Right. So the idea is that you should do all of this and do it in a seamless fashion because there are different use cases. Okay. So but anyway, I'll investigate the problem, but if you know the chart we published, you can see the chart. So, and then do I publish? Now